Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Natalie Boehm, and I'm the president and founder of the Defeating Epilepsy Foundation. We are a 501c3 here in Southern California, and our mission is to provide the advocacy and educational services needed to the epilepsy community in our society. Today, our guest is Bob Fiore. Bob is the president and founder of the Connecticut Epilepsy Advocate, a 501c3 serving the epilepsy community in the state of Connecticut. Bob has had epilepsy since birth and after brain surgery in 2006, now has his seizures controlled. Bob created his foundation in 2009 to help people and educate others about epilepsy. Thank you, Bob, for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. This means a lot.
Thank you. Battling epilepsy can be very challenging, and many are fearful due to the discrimination they have faced. As a community, we need to unite and support one another if we are going to remove the stigma associated with epilepsy. Educating people outside of the epilepsy community is one of the many first steps we need to take for us to make a difference. Bob, can you tell our supporters about your foundation and what made you decide to create the Connecticut Epilepsy Advocate? Well, first,
Well, what happened?
show us your shirt so everyone can see your logo
Sure,
and your info. Oh,
sure.
awesome.
And of course, the website's right there, ct-ea.org.
Awesome.
And you might notice we're wearing our medical bracelet, which is important, and our own wristbands.
Oh, well, here, what I should do then too. That's one habit I promise. I actually bought myself one too. And I haven't worn one in years, but I finally told myself after many years, I got to stop being fearful of wearing one. So I just
Nothing
was
to be
good and put
fearful.
mine on
It's
too.
there. Mine doesn't come off. It's there day and night.
That's good.
Well, back to your question.
Yes.
Um, I knew about a foundation associated with a national office, and they seemed to be pretty decent, and I started to volunteer for them. But I noticed their way of thinking was different. It wasn't like mine. And I saw they were inundated with fundraisers. And I'm like, okay, fundraiser, fundraiser. What are you doing with the funding? I never could find out what they did with the funding. And I had gone to an event, and long story short, it just didn't go good. And I left early. I came home, and my wife says, what are you doing early, home early? And I told her what happened. And for some reason, she says, are you making this up? I'm like, of course not. And she goes, yeah, I didn't even know why I asked that. She goes, why don't you start your own organization so you know what to do? I say, yeah. She says, go ahead. So talked to one former neighbor. She found a CPA and an attorney for me. My buddy down the street, I says, I want to build a website. And he goes, of course. He goes, let me show you. Excuse me. And we put the website together. It took about 3, 4 months. And when the website was complete, it just happened to be November, and the original website had 4 pages. So I picked up the phone, called the reporter I know, go, Pam, it's Bobby. He says, yeah, what's up? Need an interview on epilepsy, please. She goes, I already did one. I said, well, this is different. She goes, what could be so different? I said, I started my own organization. I'll be there tomorrow with the photographer.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. So we had taken a spare bedroom upstairs and made our office. Now with COVID, my wife works home, so that's now her office. And they came up there, they did the interview, and it was a feature story.
Oh, that is awesome. And I think it's wonderful that you've done this because I find that, even if organizations mean good, until you really experience what you're advocating for and you can see both sides of it, it's really hard to complete your mission. It's
It
really
is.
hard to be able to carry out what you want to carry out unless you can truly understand what you're advocating for and what kind of an impact you need to make.
Absolutely. And actually, in our 12 years of existence, we are now on our third website. And as I mentioned earlier, the original website had 4 pages. The present website has over 21 pages. And one of
Wow.
them was added. It's all about veterans.
And that's awesome. We really need stuff like that, just due to the fact that with the stigma associated with epilepsy, so many vets who have developed traumatic brain injuries, which have led to epilepsy or complications such as PTSD, they're really not getting the support they need once leaving the military, or even while if they're still in active duty. And I feel that's such a disservice to the men and women who serve us, who go and put their lives on the front line. Something happens, and that level of support they need is not there.
It just disappears, and that's sad. No, adding that veterans page was the best thing we ever did. There's about over a dozen links there regarding veterans, epilepsy, PTSD, certain links for women who are veterans and what they've been through. So it's a multitude of things there. And I'm sure maybe you'll think of something and have me add it to the page too.
Oh, definitely. I went through it once, but I'll go through it again, and I know for sure there's other things that we can find for it. Because the wonderful thing I have is one of my vice president of my foundation is an active Marine right now. And what's really wonderful is as he's transitioning out of the military, he has helped a number of people who are already on that step to make sure that they're getting educational opportunities, which can help lead to employment opportunities. You know, they see what I really like about the people that I've met in the military who help our foundation is they realize how important every step of the way is. Even once you're done
Mhm.
serving, you're still a family. You still have to look out for each other. And I love the bonding, the environment it creates. It creates such a loyal environment. So I think it's wonderful that you're offering these links and information, and I hope it helps other veterans to have the courage to contact you and realize that there is no reason to be silent or ashamed or embarrassed if they're battling any of these things. That
Sure, I agree.
there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with asking and saying, I need to heal. I need to take the first step here.
And just so we can clarify something,
Mm-hmm.
even though the Connecticut Epilepsy Advocate is based in Milford and we serve all 169 cities and towns here in Connecticut, we do help people with epilepsy across the country.
Yes. Which is, I think a lot of people don't realize grassroots organizations like yours and mine are willing to do that. And so I think it's great
Absolutely.
that that's mentioned because I hope our supporters can see that, you know, along with my organization, if they're closer to the East Coast or even if they just have questions, not to hesitate to reach out to you and to ask for your help. Because I think the more people that we can bring together who are battling epilepsy together to help one another, the more we can strengthen our community, which is, at least in my opinion, long overdue.
I totally agree. And Natalie and I have kind of a running joke that if you contact me and you need help, you think it's too late. Well, she's on the West Coast, so she could pick up where I left off, or then she could send you back to me the next day.
Absolutely. Yes.
We really, you and I really don't look at the clock. We don't. And it's
No.
it's the same scenario where someone was asking me years ago if you would serve outside of the state. I just look at it this way, and I'm explaining Lower Fairfield County, Connecticut, that goes into the state of New York. I said, imagine there's a person in Greenwich has a seizure, they passed out, and 2/3 of them is laying over in New York. I said, you think the EMT really cares? And it's going to say, no, Greenwich PD can't pick them up. You have to get Portchester. As they don't look at it that way,
No.
as they help the individual. And we feel the same way. Doesn't matter where you live. We help the individual. And you've seen
Yeah.
that.
Oh no, absolutely. I've seen you go up and beyond for so many people in this community and not just them calling in, but you know, the times we've been friends and I've seen you on social media helping to answer questions, helping to provide services to people who need it. And you're right, when it comes to advocacy, I think a lot of people don't realize this isn't a 9 to 5 job. It
No,
really isn't. You don't get to say at
not.
5 o'clock, okay, I'm done for the day. Okay, you're battling something, call me in the morning at 9 when I open back up. I mean, doing my work throughout here, I talk to people all different times of the day. And I mean, working with people Um, on the other side of the world, one of the doctors, I love him. He's remarkable what he does for his patients. He's in Mumbai. Well, if he's having a event at 1 o'clock in the afternoon there, it's 11:30 at night over here. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I've gone into a meeting at 11 o'clock at night and left at 2 in the morning, but it was worth every moment of it because
Well,
I've learned so much from him. And one thing I love is some of the things that I'm advocating for now in my organization, such as music and art therapy and mental health counseling for people with epilepsy. He's already on the game with that. He has in his clinic on the weekends, the kids can go and do arts and crafts and make friends with the other kids who are battling epilepsy. During
mhm.
COVID, he had a music teacher who was teaching the kids piano and how to sing through Zoom. I mean, it's remarkable. And then when was it? For International Epilepsy Day, he had a few of the kids perform what they had been learning during COVID with the music teacher, and they sang and played their pianos for us. And it was just, I was so proud of the kids.
Must be amazing.
Yeah, and I would love to see more stuff like that start happening over here. So I hope in time with the work you're doing and I'm doing is going to lead to things like that.
I'm sure it will. Right now what we're tripping over is COVID, but once that settles down, a lot more will happen.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the biggest frustrations for people battling epilepsy has been a lack of community support. So, what is your organization doing to help our community?
What the communities, there's quite a few things. Number one, on Zoom, we have our support groups there instead of at the 4 physical locations, and they're always on the second Thursday of every month. Other things in the community, we've worked with local schools explaining how to treat a person when they have epilepsy. We've spoken with different fire departments and police departments, showing things that they can do. And there's one other thing which is very ironic. I have my buddy April, one city over from here, and she had showed me this little plastic container with some paper in it. I said, "What the heck is that?" And she goes, "The fire department gives this here. So if somebody has a medical condition, they put their information into it." I'm like, interesting. That what they had was good, but
Yeah,
me being me, it wasn't good enough.
I
All
see
right,
that.
you know me long enough. So I composed an ICE sheet in case of emergency. And I have a standard one that anybody can see a sample on our website, ct-ea.org, and look at the drop down for ICE, 911 ICE. So I put that together, and we work with the Medical Alert Foundation. So if you come to us with help, we always hook you up to get a Medical Alert bracelet, and then we take your information for your ICE sheet, compose the two together, and then send it to a Medical Alert. It takes them about half a day tops, to put it into your account. If someone calls 911 and they see your Medical Alert bracelet and they see inside your account number and what you have, what medical condition, the same sheet that we composed for you with every detail, and I mean every detail, they pull that right up. So naturally, if you're having a seizure, you're really not going to be talking. And they'll notice right away that sheet is hanging there. You make it visible. And we tell people, put it by the entry, when you come in the door where it's visible. Put it in your travel bags. Put it in your suitcase. Put it in your office bag. So it's there.
No, it's something very much needed because I'm glad that along with encouraging a bracelet, that you're encouraging something like that, something with some basic, information that the ER would need right away. Because I found the last time I had lost consciousness, this was years ago in 2004, despite having a medic bracelet, they didn't look for it. They assumed I was under the influence. So
Right.
I think it's really important that we advocate for people to be using medic bracelets and to making sure they have their information to prevent any mistakes like that. And I'll be the first to admit, after I had the real negative experience in the ER, I threw mine away, which wasn't smart. But I was so angry at the time with what happened to me that I didn't even want to look at it anymore. I thought my attitude was, well, why put a stigma on myself and then something happens and they're not going to even look at it. It was, me being young and stupid in my early 20s.
Hey, we all were.
Yes, we
Then
were.
some.
But then once I had kids and my kids have to wear one for their hemophilia, I thought, well, it's pretty hypocritical of me to tell my sons that they have little medic necklaces. I'm like, well, it's hypocritical of me to say, you got to keep that on. So if something happens, you get sick at school or something, they know what to do. And here I was refusing to wear one of my own. So I finally this year said, you know what? I got to get over it and set a better example for my children. So I bought mine, and as much as I don't like it, I'm making myself wear it.
Yeah. I'll tell you the truth. Mine is on. I don't know what's there. And this is the true Medic Alert bracelet. The Medic Alert Foundation goes back to the mid 50s. So they've been around a while. They definitely know what they're doing.
But no, that's awesome. And now, if anyone wanted to get a medical alert bracelet through your organization, they can go to your website. And I know you said the ICE information is there. The sheet is the medical alert also a part
Oh,
of a
absolutely.
resource.
Yep. ct-ea.org. And
Awesome.
you'll find it there. There's, like I said, there's a multitude of drop downs, but Medic Alert is listed. Let me find it for you. So we have, well, first off, our 911 and ICE is under our info page.
Okay.
And then for Medic Alert, you have that under our resources page. But once you
Perfect.
read one, you're definitely going to read the other.
Well, besides the medical alert resources, what other resources can people find on your website if they need help?
Well, under resources alone, you have our support groups, medical alert bracelets, Embrace 2, the special wristwatch for people living with epilepsy. We mentioned our blood donations. That's a whole other program we do. We sponsor blood drives. There's a prescriptions page, cell phones page, and a Rapid Haven page. Back to your information, there's basic FAQ about epilepsy. There's a glossary of terms because a lot of people don't know those terms. SSI, SSDI, and Social Security. General information and medications page are there. And as we had said before, an entire page is made out just for veterans. Under transportation, it shows every source of transportation here in the state of Connecticut, every bus, local and state, every train line that goes through Connecticut. So it's there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there's
Yeah,
one other page. Sorry, there's one other page.
that's okay.
It's called the news page. And in a few weeks, it'll be 5 years that we had introduced what became House Bill 5450, the palliative use of medical marijuana for children. No, this isn't for Cheech and Chong. You don't get wasted, you don't get stoned, you don't get high. This is strictly for medical use. And it took us 3 tries. I guess that's what they say, third time was a charm. And the bill went through and the bill passed. And it's been so helpful to so many people by having this and using it. Did it work for everyone? No. But we figured by making it a law, I had said when it was asked, is how many could it help? I says, I don't know. I said, but look at it this way. There's approximately 60,000 people in Connecticut living with epilepsy. I go, if that helps 1/10 of 1%, then we accomplished something.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things I think a lot of times people don't really understand the use of what medical marijuana is. They're
No.
assuming, oh, they just want to get high. I actually qualified for medical marijuana. My doctor let me know, and I decided not to do it. I was too nervous. But for so many people, being able to use things such as Charlotte's Web and other THC oils or other, it really can help with not just reduction seizure activity and getting things controlled, but you think of a lot of the side effects that people with epilepsy deal with, the
Yeah.
anxiety, depression, things like that. It really helps with that as well. There's multiple benefits to it.
Oh, yeah. And the beauty of the CBD oil that you get at any of the shops is what it works on some people. The work it does is amazing. But for the original Charlotte's Web, you get the correct one, and you just have to understand with this, you'll get it from the prescription, and you're like, oh, what do I start with? Normally, they'll tell you start with 2 drops or a half a teaspoon or something. It all varies on the individual and the severity of their seizure activity. And that's how you do it. You just don't grab a whole bottle and chuck it down. You just have to decide for yourself to think for a second, like, okay, he has about 10 seizures a day. Well, then start him off on something a little more, like a half a teaspoon, and do that for twice a day, 3 times a day, and make note of it. And the best way to make note of anything seizure related is go to seizuretracker.com. We
Mm-hmm.
became friends with Lisa and Rob, fabulous people, and they put Seizure Tracker together for their son Evan. That was how many years ago? And it's helped people around the world, and it's free. Can you do better than that?
No, free is good. I can't complain about free at all. But no, I think it's really wonderful that they've put together resources like that, especially families who understand the need for them. I mean, myself, with my seizures being controlled, I use Epsy, which is an app, it's a free app, and it's I don't know who created it, to be honest. I found it through Samsung. And what it does is you put in when you're supposed to take your medicine, and you could set a little alarm or reminder of when to take your medicine. Because, I find if I'm stressed in the morning or I'm really tired at night, I can very easily forget my meds.
Oh, yeah.
And what I do is I have it on my phone because I use my phone as an alarm clock as well. So
Yep.
I know that when it goes off in the morning, I'll get my reminder. And when I'm getting ready to go to bed, when I'm setting the alarm on my phone, I know it's going to remind me then too, which has been such a lifesaver for me.
Yeah, it is. I'm lucky. I have 5 nieces, 4 nephews. They're all great, and they've been very supportive. I'd say it was 18 years ago. I used to pace the floor waiting for the top of the hour. I take my medication 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And my niece goes, Uncle Bob, what are you doing? I said, I'm waiting for 9 o'clock. She goes, oh, come on. So set the alarm on your phone. And ever since then, it's 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. is set in the phone. Uh, my other niece, her sister, when I started the organization, she says, what's the website going to be? And I told her, and she was, well, stop right there. She says, it's way too long. She says, you have to make your link shorter than that. I said, okay. So because we're in Connecticut and we are the Epilepsy Advocate, the website is CT-EA. And we're at NPO, so it's .org. When she saw it, she goes, can't make it simpler than that.
Nope. It's very straightforward, which is awesome.
Yeah, my niece and nephews are great. They're right on top of it. And that's where I love getting information from them. These kids are smart.
Yes. And it's good that you have family support and they see how important your advocacy work is. And I think that's a lot of the things with us in the community. We either have a lot of support or sadly we have families who just don't understand the complexity of living with epilepsy. Now that my parents are getting older, they recognize it more, but it was very difficult in my childhood. And I think really what it came down to, it wasn't that my parents didn't want to learn or make sure I had what I need. The doctors, they assigned me to an adult neurologist.
Mm-hmm.
He had no idea what he was doing. He
Right.
tried. I can't say he was neglectful, but he really didn't know what he was doing. And I became a guinea pig throughout my childhood. And of course, because I was over medicated the first 10 years of dealing with epilepsy, I was on 90 milligrams of phenobarbital a day. And my
Wow.
parents were so frustrated because I was exhausted all the time. I got irritable and emotional really easily. I was really hypersensitive. And, my parents thought I was being a brat. But as they, started to finally learn more, once more education came out, they realized it wasn't me being a brat. I was just over medicated on a very powerful barbiturate, and
Yeah.
I was just a little kid trying to live.
And that's what a lot of doctors and patients don't understand is just because you put a ton of medication into an individual, you're not really controlling it. You're pretty much stopping their normal lifestyle. You want to be able to
Yes,
control it.
exactly. Well, I have that the Connecticut Epilepsy or Connecticut Advocate, I'm sorry, recently took part in a blood drive. What other community events does your organization take part in?
Uh, just basic things. See, the thing is now with COVID-19, there's not many functions going on, but we're a partner agency of United Way of Milford. We're also a coalition member at the Milford Prevention Council. They help people with alcohol and drug abuse, so we're part of them. But the whole reason I started a blood drive is that for decades, people with epilepsy just could not give blood. And I was disappointed because if I was able to donate back in 73, it would have been, I'd be close to 50 gallons of donation by now, probably 60
Oh,
gallons.
wow.
And then I found out after that, that people with epilepsy, some, not all, can donate blood. So I checked it out, got into it. I'm like, okay, I qualify to donate. I check with my doctor, check with my neurologist to like do it. So I started to donate. And I noticed, and you know me long enough, I saw some things. I'm like, nah, this isn't good enough. So I told the Red Cross, I want to sponsor my own blood drive. So like, okay. In the beginning, I followed the program and it was all right. And finally I said, can I do this my way? That's what do you mean? I says, I want to do the research. I want to do the setup, the promotion, the whole thing. They're like, okay. So since that time, we just had our 40th blood drive.
Oh, awesome.
Our 40 blood drives combined have brought in over 230 gallons of blood.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And that's amazing that it shows that you're not just focused on people who are battling epilepsy, but people throughout your community, and that you become more than just an organization, but a community partner,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I find too many organizations really don't do that.
Well, I always laugh, and thank you. I always laugh. They go, what's donating blood have to do with epilepsy? I said, it does and it doesn't. I said, but that's not the point. It's part of helping the community. And I
Mhm.
wish more parents would show their kids how to help the community in at least two ways. You don't have to do a dozen things, but if you do it two ways, that'd be great.
Oh no, and I agree. And I mean, with my kids don't have epilepsy, they have hemophilia. But what my husband and I do to help the community, my husband is a periodontist and he teaches at a dental school. So every once in a while, they'll have an event to learn about dentistry because, well, you understand the frustrations of having a pre-existing condition.
Oh, yeah.
You and I go to a dentist or we go to somebody, if they don't understand epilepsy, the first thing they're going to say, oh, it's out of my scope. I can't do this. You need to see a specialist. They do the same thing to many families with hemophilia because a lot of the dentists fear liability. So he
Wow.
brings in his students to help examine these kids who have hemophilia, examine their teeth, and show them that, this is not something to fear. You should not fear a patient. It's understandable to be concerned, but this is when you take the opportunity to learn and do what's in their best interest. Just telling them, I can't help you, goodbye, that's not solving the problem. And if anything, it's pushing the patients even more out of their comfort zone compared to the dentist or a doctor,
Oh, yeah.
because you put them in a position where they're going, okay, I need help, but no one's willing to help me. What do I do? And I find it's why so many people with pre-existing conditions, I don't think they intentionally neglect themselves, but they feel the resources just aren't there for them.
Right. Well, there's you and I spoke about this earlier. There's a woman in Pennsylvania that needed some help. And we're friends via LinkedIn. And I noticed the topic she brought up, nothing was resolved. And I asked her 2 weeks ago, what's the latest? And she goes, nothing's happened yet. I said, why don't we make a phone call? So I'm on the phone with her and her daughter. 91 minutes later, we hang up because so many things were addressed. So we're going to have a follow-up meeting with her probably next week and the daughter too. But they just couldn't get over what was available. I'm like, we have everything here. I says, we're here to help you.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that blows me away, it's like the last 5 or 6 people that have come to us for help, they're asking, well, how much do we have to pay you? I'm like, nothing. And they're mesmerized. I'm like, guys, why would you pay? I said, we're a 501c3. We don't get paid. I said, we offer our services for free.
And I think that's a lot of things people don't understand because even though my organization is much younger than yours, and I mean I'm offering a scholarship and we're in the process of making another program. People are just so shocked to hear somebody cares enough to want to help. They're always looking, and it's sad to say, but they're always looking for like, is there a string attached such as pain? What is the favor they want back? And they just I think there's just too few people in our society who are willing to say, I'll help you. You don't owe me anything. I'll help you. I know I've been there. I know what it's like. Let's
Sadly,
find a
that's true.
solution to it.
Yeah, sadly, that's true. I mean, even there's been 2 veterans we helped. We helped one veteran about 4 years ago. We started helping a second veteran last year, and we're still working with him because he not only is a veteran with epilepsy, but he has PTSD on top of that.
Yeah.
So he needs a lot of help. And that's how uh, our communication through the VA got started. And now I'm happy to say it's more than before that we communicate with them. And that's what another reason we started that veterans page.
And I think that's awesome because I think a lot of people, when they think of just epilepsy, they just think seizures. And
Yeah,
they don't realize that epilepsy really is a comorbid disease, which means you deal with more than just seizures.
right.
Anxiety, depression, PTSD. Some people have ADHD, autism, cerebral palsy. There's so many things that can connect to epilepsy. And I mean, myself, I have PTSD as well as epilepsy. And I have found that actually living with PTSD, at least for me, is much more challenging. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yes, my seizures are controlled. Yes, I'm doing well. I haven't lost, it's been 16 years now since I lost consciousness. But then at the same time, just trying to get my PTSD under control, even being in therapy, there's times I become extremely hypersensitive to situations and can get
Oh, yeah.
angry very easily. I
Mhm.
find that if I'm really stressed, forget sleep. And I mean, if I have night terrors, I don't even remember the nightmare, but I'll wake up either very frightened or very angry. And I have to go sit down and it could take easily a good hour before I can calm myself down and say everything's okay and get back to what I need to do.
No, it's not easy. And that's why it's kind of funny because we talk to people and we hit them with a series of questions. And it gets to the point, I don't hear a yes answer. And I'm like, let's flip the cards over. That's a line from an old TV show. And they're like, why? And I says, I'm having a series of standard questions, and not one of them have you responded with a yes, which means there's a problem here. And one by one by one of each of those questions, we explain, you said no, here's a way to turn it around to yes. And the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And a lot of people with epilepsy don't realize that before they go to an extreme and I should have surgery, I need a seizure dog and this and that. I'm like, well, hold on a second. Are you eating? Are you sleeping? Do you take your medication on time? And then I hear about, no, I don't get any sleep. Oh, I'm supposed to have 3 meals a day. My medication, if I remember it, I take it. Well, right there, you've got a problem. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
imagine in your car, you put gas in, but the gas cap's off, the hood is open, and some of the lug nuts are off of the tires, and you're like, why does the car run funny? Well, not really, setting it up the way it should be when driving or even when it's parked.
Yeah.
So now you put everything back on. You put the gas cap back on, put all the lug nuts back on, close the hood, line everything correctly, start the engine, and it'll get moving with no problem.
Yeah.
But people don't realize those little things. Then one of the biggest things, besides taking your medication on time, is having 3 meals a day and staying hydrated. We tell people all the time, take half your body weight of water. And if you live with epilepsy, do not drink any alcoholic beverages. I know some people, they do. I'm like, we're not going to argue with it. Go ahead. But we are totally against it.
Oh yeah. And I mean that's also very important with the eating. You know,
Mhm.
all this stuff, eating, drinking proper fluids, exercising, meditating. And that's one of the things I've over time have tried to teach people. Even before I started my foundation, I have my support group in Facebook. Just this is not a condition where it's okay, you just take your pill and everything's going to be peachy. It's not. It is so complex. And I mean, myself, if I don't exercise daily, I'm miserable.
Yeah,
And I know it's a combination of the side effects of my epilepsy and PTSD. I mean, that's why when I had COVID, it was horrible because I was too weak to exercise. And even now that I'm not exercising daily, but I'm making a goal of 3 times a week. But
yeah.
even that I'm still frustrated. And I just have to keep reminding myself, you're alive. You survived it. Yes, you don't like where you are right now, but
But it could be
here's where you
worse.
are.
Yeah,
It'll get better.
yeah. No, it always could be worse. And that's what you have to tell yourself. It could be worse. And you don't
Oh
want
yeah.
it to be worse. You want to keep progressing forward.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean that's something I hope with I have you gone on to our YouTube channel at this point?
Not recently.
Yeah, we're putting together a series called Living with Epilepsy. And so far we've put on things about music therapy and dance therapy. We're going to be putting up information about yoga. We interviewed a gentleman who is a practitioner in India. So we're putting up all sorts of different wellness things. We work with a nutritionist who has epilepsy. She's in South Africa. And we're going to be making a series just on what she can teach us about proper eating, proper sleep habits, and everything because I just feel like those resources are not being discussed when we go to see our doctors. And you can't find the information just right there unless you do your homework and you know what to look for. You're not going to find it.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of your website and ours. There's a ton of information that's on the website. I get teased all the time. We'll be in a room full of people. They ask questions. I explain. I go, it's on our website. What happened one time, we were in a room with people, it was a support group. Woman asked a question. I explained what it is. I go, by the way, it's on our website, ct-ea.org. A few minutes later, another question. I said, well, it's called this, and it's on our website. About 10 minutes later, she had a third question. The entire room stood up and said, it's on his website. We are just going to the website.
I love it. I love it. It's on his website. Get the
Just
hint. Go
go
to
to
the
the website.
website.
It's there. And as I say, if you can't find it on our website, please let me know. But with over 21 pages, if
Mhm.
you really can't find it there, I do want to know.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we're working towards too. We want people to know that if they don't see something, they can reach out and ask, but we want them to know that at least my experience, I think what has driven me to make education one of the main points of my mission is I just felt there was no education available when I was younger when it came to epilepsy and even into early adulthood. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I've had is trying to get a question answered, what resources are available. I've had doctors refuse to show me test results. So here I am taking medication for treatment, and I'm really not grasping what specifically is being treated, which to me establishes such a lack of trust between the doctor and patient.
Sure.
So really I want people to see that, how important this all is. I am in a meeting. When I'm done, please. For our followers, I want to let you know I have a 7 and 9-year-old, and there's no such thing in privacy in my house. So I do apologize that I'm turning my head when we're doing this interview. All right. My son got the, I'm so sorry,
Really?
Bob.
Okay.
I told them I'm meeting today. Please don't come in till I'm done.
Maybe there's a confusion in the time, like what you and me.
Probably.
They are on the West Coast with you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah. So, but what services do you feel are lacking in our community?
I think the fact that people, other epilepsy organizations that are based out of a national office don't offer the resources, don't answer the questions, don't find, we find doctors for people, and we find people that can't afford their medication. We hook them up either through a source where they can get their medication for free or via discount. We're adamant about having the mail order prescriptions and receiving it on a 90-day basis, even before COVID-19. But once it started, we were adamant, and you saw it all over Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere. We kept telling people, we don't know what this COVID thing is going to be like. Get your medication mailed to you. And we always
Mhm.
tell people, when it comes to November, which is Epilepsy Awareness Month, ask your doctor to write a new script and then
Yeah.
send it in. And they go, why? I said, number one, you want to start a new pattern of the medication being sent out. And number two, by doing that, you're always going to have extra medication
Yes.
when you go into the new year. We also explain to people that if you get a bottle to carry your medication in, and for your own safe and legal coverage, you add your medical account on it. That'll have your
Oh,
information. That way, if anybody should see that bottle, what's on that bottle is on your medical alert account. So sadly, in some states, if it's not in an actual prescription bottle, you could be charged with possession of a drug. But
yes.
by doing it this way, they contact medical alert and they're like, okay, we know who this is. His doctors are so and so. His medication is this. Fine. Now you're legally covered.
And that's really good because actually I just learned something new now. I did not know that you could do such a thing. I mean, that is the one thing I was always nervous about when traveling,
Yeah.
especially if I traveled out of the country. I always made sure I had the bottles with my information. Traveling state to state, I've never had a problem, but I admit traveling out of the country, I've always gotten nervous. So what I will do is I will ask my doctor to write just a basic letter stating I'm under his care and that the medication I have with me, he is prescribing it to me. So that if I go through customs and they're asking me, well, what is this? It's look at the letter from my doctor.
Mhm. You have to do that. And your
Yeah.
doctor also has to show that Natalie will be on the road from July 1st to July 15th and what countries you're going to.
Yeah.
So once that's documented, then you have nothing to worry about. As far as carrying medication, here's your standard bottle that medication comes in. But I'm on 11 medications. I can't be,
Oh,
bring 11
wow.
bottles with me. But what I carry in my pocket is just the epilepsy medication. The others I do have to take, but they can wait a couple of hours. The standard 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. when that alarm goes off on my phone, it's right there in my pocket or in my travel bag.
Oh,
My
yeah.
the bottle in my pocket holds about 7 days or 7.5 days, and the bottle in my travel bag is 21 days. So I should not run out.
No, and that's very good. That's why when I've asked people or people have asked me, I'm sorry, in the past, do am I scared to travel? And I said no, because I've had to, everyone has to set up their own system. The one thing I refuse to put my medication in my luggage, and a lot of people ask me, well, why do you insist on carrying it? I'm like, I never know if I'm going to get laid over. How do I
Right.
know somebody? It sounds terrible, but the history of TSA stealing things. I mean, I don't know if people really understand what I'm taking and they may steal it thinking they can sell it, or they may have a loved one who's sick and are on that medication and steal it for their loved one. You never
True.
know what someone is going to do. So it's
Yeah.
like I make sure I take a book bag with me and my meds are in my book bag the whole time. I
I
always make sure I have
I
them.
totally agree. I totally agree. That's why every medication I take is in that travel bag, which goes on and off the plane or the cruise line with me in my hand. No, I
Yes.
totally agree.
So no, it's good to know the precautions you need to take so that you can enjoy things in life and yet remain safe that you're going to get what you need.
Oh yeah. I mean, we was it 21 years ago, my wife and I went to Switzerland with the family. And of course, our luggage was lost for 2 days, but luckily in the handheld bag, I had all the medication with me. We
Yeah.
took a cruise, one of many, but again, that handheld bag went on with us. And I forget which cruise it was, but somewhere the luggage got put somewhere. We found it later that day, but again, the medication came on with us and came off with us.
Yeah. And that's what counts.
But imagine that time when we went over to Europe, and then the one time we went to California, bag was lost for 2 days. So imagine no medication for 2 days.
Oh, that can be a death sentence for many with epilepsy. That's the scary
Yeah,
thing about it. A lot of people
exactly.
think, oh, okay, if you miss your medicine for a few days, why it's too dangerous. I
Yeah.
mean, that's why it's like along with my seizure meds, I take the generic form of Zoloft, and
Mhm.
it helps with my depression. But at the same time, I can't tell you how many times I've almost run out and they'll be like, well, we can have it in 3 days. And I'm like, do you know what 3 days of no meds is what's gonna happen to me? I'm
Yeah.
like, first you're gonna put me going through withdrawal. It's gonna interact with my other meds, and I could have a seizure going through withdrawal. You could I go, that's why you can't mess with these things. And I don't think people really get that at times, how dangerous it could be just, to some people, they're like, okay, it's a day or two, but a
No,
day or two could be life or death.
yeah. I mean, a day or two with coffee with no sugar instead of sugar, no big deal. But you can't compare to that. No way.
No, not at all.
And I'm
Well,
sure, Natalie, you know this, but many doctors in every state will let you go to a pharmacy. They'll call the pharmacy and say, give the individual 3 days now. And then when their prescription comes in, that'll take care of the rest. Again,
oh
that's
yeah.
something that you have to be careful in every state. The vast majority of doctors and pharmacies totally agree with it. They understand the individual short on the medication, they do it. I'm sure there's some stickler somewhere that I can't do it, but you just have to fight it.
Yeah. No, I've been very lucky. I go through CVS out where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're short on it or they don't have it, the good thing is they will call around in the area. And
Oh,
once
yeah.
they find it, they call me and say, "Okay, here's where it is." We let them know to put it aside for you and go pick it up. And I mean, that's only happened once or twice, but it's been great that they will look until it's found. They don't brush it off, which really I greatly appreciate things like that.
Which I have to be honest, as much as I love the mom and pop pharmacies, and they do everything they can, you want to support local business, but that's in many cases where the big names come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, not knocking mom and pop, because I grew up with a mom and pop pharmacy. And I remember the last guy that worked there, when the place closed, he reminded me that he was 19 when he started. When the place closed, I think he was in his 40s. So he was there
Oh,
for a while.
wow.
But urban redevelopment shut that part of the city down.
Yeah. No, I don't know of any mom and pop ones anymore. I remember growing up and having the same thing. Where I lived, it was within walking distance. And it's sad. I don't even think, does anything like that still exist here?
Yeah, in Connecticut, there's a handful of mom and pops in all the 8 counties, but not like before.
Yeah. No, being out here in San Bernardino, the main ones we have is CVS and Walgreens. I haven't seen any family pharmacies in so long.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth. As you know, 100 Connecticut has 169 cities and towns. I would say maybe there's two in each one of them, if that many, and the
Yeah.
rest are all commercial.
Oh, it's sad because I find the family businesses were the stronger ones, but
Absolutely.
it's still good to see that even though the commercialized ones are growing more and more, they're still, at least in my experience, they're still living up to what they need to do, which, is comforting as a patient.
And you brought something up and you didn't realize you brought it up. There's something that everybody should know, epilepsy or not, is that you should have an agreement with your doctor and your neurologist, and you sign the paperwork. So when you visit a neurologist, your records go to your MD. When you visit your MD, your records go to your neurologist. When you visit your neurologist at least twice a year, you should get blood work. And then your regular MD, at least twice a year, should be recommending blood work and say, listen, whatever the neurologist left out and vice versa, whatever the regular MD left out. And the two of them look at it like, oh, wait a minute, he didn't check for iron or she didn't check for this. So you're covered. And then the two of them
Yeah.
read those records and like, wow, not bad. Or they'll notice, wait a minute, he's low on this or they're short on that.
Yeah.
They have to take care of it.
No, and that's a very valid point. I'm right now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a good neurologist. That's one of the biggest challenges we're having now, I'm finding in the medical industry is I've known people either who can find great doctors or they're like me where the doctor I was previously with, you know, we couldn't communicate. And not because I didn't want to communicate. I had to constantly hear how it was all in my head. Everything was in my head. And I'm thinking, well, I hope after 40 years, I understand that what's going on is affecting in my head. But, it was you know, he wouldn't show me test results. He didn't want to answer questions. And after 40 years of living with this, I've lost the patience to deal with that. And I changed my medical group recently, and I wanted to see an epileptologist. And he had, about the time I was getting put into the group, he left the medical group. And so my new doctor, he's very nice. He has very nice staff, and they reached out to the medical group and the medical group assigned me to somebody and I got the information for it. I did a background to see the reviews on the neurologist and it was all 1 stars. And every patient who had been with him says he has a history of shouting and talking down to patients. And I called the office. I didn't say anything to them. I'm like, I'm not going to be scheduling an appointment. I know something was sent over to you. I'm not interested. And I had to call my doctor's office and say, I know this comes off controlling to some people, but please don't do that again. Let
Yeah.
me do my homework. Let me find somebody under the group plan that you'll be able to send a referral to and let me do it. So if something goes bad, it's on me and not you. I go, if I wouldn't have checked this out and would have gone into that guide, he would have shouted at me. Knowing how I react with my PTSD, I would have exploded in the office.
Oh, yeah.
I would have tore into him. And I had to explain that to the staff that with having a condition like epilepsy and the many things that come with it, this can't be, oh, just go see a doctor. And if it doesn't work out, you can always find another one. You have to really focus on finding someone to have a very healthy doctor patient relationship with. Because
Oh,
if
yeah.
they're not listening or they're being verbally abusive, it stresses the patient out. It stresses the
Sure.
patient out and triggers more seizures. More seizures happen. A lot of doctors want to up the medication because, and before you know it, you're burnt out, exhausted between being over medicated and stressed.
Yeah. So I have a question. Are you able to show people watching us our website right now?
I should be able to here. Let me pull it
And
up
why?
on my screen.
Okay. And while you're doing that, my alarm went off, so I'm going to go grab my medication.
Okay, you do that,
Okay.
and then we'll
Let's see you pull it up. That'd be great if you could.
okay, perfect. So I have your site up, so why don't you tell us if you want me to go to any certain one, please let me know, but go ahead and you can describe the site to our supporters.
Sure. You can see the taskbars across the top. I think one of the biggest ones that I'd like the people to see is if you go to About Us and then click on Testimonials. And you read the testimonials from the different people, and they're very straightforward of what they needed, how we helped. I think one of the cutest ones, if you scroll down, please, it shows the Cantizero family. And the funny thing about them, it's right above Nancy.
Nancy, oh,
Right
there we go. Thank
there.
you.
So they had contacted me on the weekend, and we got talking and explained to them, please go to the website, do a few things, etc., and call me back. So a while later, they called me back and they said, we're really sorry. I go, for what? So we read your website like you said. It says you're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Today's Sunday. I said, I'm not going to make you wait. I said, let's open your son's case and get the ball rolling. Because you're
Oh, how
sure?
wonderful.
I said, yeah, I'm sure. I said, I'm the one that runs this show. I said, let's get it started. And we've been friends ever since.
And I think that's awesome. Well, because like we were saying in the beginning of the interview, this isn't a 9 to 5 job. Epilepsy doesn't look at it as like, okay, it's the end of the workday. I'm not going to, make your life difficult until, shop opens again tomorrow. I mean, it strikes at any time and it can strike anyone at any time. That's the biggest challenge with it.
So, and you know what, Natalie, since we spoke about it earlier, why don't we please go to under About Us and you'll see, sorry, under info. I do
And
apologize.
we were
This
talking
is
about the 911 at ICE, weren't we?
ICE. Yeah. So this gives you a basic explanation of what 911 ICE is. And as you scroll down, we explain what it is, how your contact people should be listed. And you scroll down even further, if someone wants to click on the sample sheet, there's a sample PDF of what it would look like. And you put your full information, you get your medical alert bracelet account, and then it'll say epilepsy and then your account number. But I guarantee you that once this gets filled out and they see that medical alert bracelet and they read that paperwork, well, everything is there. So yeah, you could be on the floor, not like a light, but all your questions are being answered.
And that is awesome because that is something, and I think that's where a lot of mistakes are made in the community. It's not that, I have an interview coming up Friday with a gentleman who is an ER doctor. One of my interns is related to him. And
Right.
the one thing we're going to talk about is what can we do to work towards improving doctor-patient relations in the emergency room? Because I had discussed with them about a couple of the real negative experiences I've had of people assuming I was under the influence of drugs and that I wasn't epileptic. I've had friends who had bad seizures and while they were seizing were restrained and when they woke up in the hospital not knowing where they were and couldn't move and it traumatized them being tied down to a bed. I've
Yep.
had one friend who was accused of faking seizures and it was really upsetting because she's had 2 failed brain surgeries, has a VNS, any medication you could think of she's tried or combination, CBD oil, or not even the CBD, what is it? The THC one, excuse me. You name it, she's done it
Yeah.
and got accused of faking. And I want to work to help people who are battling epilepsy or a caregiver who is taking a loved one to the ER. What do they need to do to bring as much? What can they prepare? So if they have to go and they go in and the doctors and nurses are there, they can say, here's what we have. This is what's going on to help them. But at the same time, the doctors and nurses being able to offer some level of compassionate care, which I know is easier said than done in the ER. In the
Yeah.
ER, sadly, a lot of times they're understressed are understaffed. They're very stressed. They're having to make split-second decisions that could cost somebody, it could be life or death. So I can understand where trying to provide good bedside manners at times may not be, I don't want to say it's not possible,
No,
but
it
more
is.
challenging than other situations. So I'm hoping in interviewing him, we can start. Really, my goal is to be able to improve the communication between people who are battling epilepsy and the professional community. And I've been really lucky that I've connected to a number of doctors who feel the same way or who have been very open with me about the frustrations they deal with on their side of the spectrum. And you can really see that it's not that they don't care or don't want to do more. They flat out said to me, here's how my job works working under the American healthcare system. I come in, I got this much time per patient to listen to what's going on, make a diagnosis, or do a follow-up and make a decision how I'm going to treat this, and then I got to get them out to get the next one in.
Right. And you brought something up, and I know it's asking a lot, but if you're able
No,
to
it's
show
okay.
the website again, please, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Because I,
Where would you like me to go?
on the website under resources, I believe it is.
Is it
The
the medic one? Medical alert?
No, so let's go back to the info. Sorry,
That's okay.
and there's the FAQ.
Okay.
That alone, that page alone, will answer so many questions for people, and you'd be surprised the questions that are asked. But these are the most standard questions people ask about epilepsy, and the answers are right there.
Yeah, and I can see some of them are very basic, but at the same time as I'm looking at them, it's some very valid ones to want to know.
Oh, I think
Even
one of the
something
biggest.
like the generic medication one here. I don't think a lot of people understand the difference between a name brand and generic other than they think, okay, the name brand has a patent on it and the generic, they're just making it it's a similar compound. I don't think they understand the two, big differences between them and why one is cheaper than the other.
Right, and here's the thing that, as explained on the website, a generic medication contains 100% of the original prescription formula, but it also contains filler. And
Yes.
sadly, there's no cap on the amount of filler that's put into any medication in America.
No.
And if they just put a simple cap on it of maybe 5, 7%, then you would really find out that more people would probably be able to take a generic and save a ton of money on top of that.
Oh,
But by having no
absolutely.
cap, we've noticed over the years, and we've watched testimony from your typical paid lobbyist. And in Hartford, they were questioned about how much filler goes into a medication, and the guy said, "What do you care?" It goes, "How much goes in?" And they're like, "Well, it matters. Give us an idea." He goes, "It doesn't matter." He goes, "We put in 12, 15, 23%. My scenario is this: you go to get gas. There's ethanol. It's 10% ethanol across the country. So suppose you said, you go, Natalie. I go, "Hey, Natalie, what, 10%? Why not go for 30% ethanol? What do you care?" Well, you could put 30% ethanol in. Your
Mhm.
engine won't start, but you can put it in. And the same thing with your medication. You keep
Mhm.
adding that much filler, and it doesn't work the same way. Hypothetically, if you take a brand medication at 8 p.m., it's going to really take full effect within maybe 10 minutes or so. But you take that generic with a ton of filler in it, and it's 8 o'clock, and it's not going to start to work until like 10:30. No, you're in a bad shape.
Yeah.
That's a bad scenario, and you
Well,
don't
the
want that.
scary thing about it too is I'll have to send you the name of the book. There's an investigative journalist, Catherine Eben, and she's done investigative journalism for the medical industry.
Mhm.
And her book came out. I was lucky to be invited to a webinar she gave at one of the universities, and she talked about how a lot of the generics are not made here in the States. They're made in India and China. And for the longest of times, there was not enough they really weren't watching these clinics like they should have been, and
Right.
they were putting in the higher amounts of filler than what they were supposed to be, and it was causing people who were taking this medication, and I'm not just talking anticonvulsants but many other
Any
medications,
medication.
for it not to be effective because they were more looking at it from a cost effective approach of how much could they stretch out so they can increase their revenue. And that's why when a lot of people get upset about things like regulations and business, myself as an entrepreneur, I can say there is a time and place for regulations. And when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to the medical industry, something like a filler, they should be capping it at a percentage. I understand why they want to put it in to reduce costs, but at the same time, at what rate can you fill it to the point where it won't be effective? Let's say it works fine at 10%. that's good. If they say, all right, let's double it to 20, and someone takes the medicine and something bad happens, you don't want that to continue to happen. I think and I'm not trying to get into politics, but I think organizations like the FDA and other of the pharmaceutical companies need to take that into consideration when they're working, they're collaborating with other companies and organizations when it comes to the medication that is coming into the US for patients.
Not only that, but when it comes to testing, if if you have the same person and once a month they should take generic A, B, C, D, and E, and all of them have a different percentage of the filler, how are you going to know what is and isn't working?
Yeah.
What causes the side effects? What might have triggered their seizure? Is their iron level off? I mean, all these are factors where if every medication had a filler at 7% or 5% and they're all equal, then you're like, okay, out of the 7 they tried that all had a 10% filler, medication 3 and 7 just don't work.
Yeah.
And the other 8 will work. So that's equal comparison, but there's no way to have an equal comparison this way. You
No,
can't.
and
And
and it's very true.
I just rotated some old phenobarbital tablets from, I keep them around just to show people. There's 3 of them. They're all white. They're all round. The size, the imprint, the thickness are completely different. But they're the
Oh,
same
wow.
dosage. They're all 3 are 32.5 milligrams. Yeah, there's a lot to it. You talk about different manufacturers. There's Teva. They're in Pennsylvania, but they manufacture in Jerusalem, Israel. And I kid about it. And I respect the company. Uh, I call them there was a comedian, Henny Youngman. He was the king of one-liners. Well, Teva is the king of generics. They make every medication generic. And the injection they manufacture for migraine headaches, I use it. I think it's great. But again, they have no guidelines or any generic manufacturer to follow. And there should be a cap on the filler of every single prescription medication.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you on that. For the safety of one, for the safety of the patient, that's the primary thing. But I think what some companies don't realize is if they did something like that with the amount of funding they put into research and seeing if something truly works, I think they would make their lives a little easier than
Yeah,
trying to play a guessing game with, okay, well, if this one didn't work, was it at a 10% or it might have been at a 15%? We don't know. I think by having a consistent structured system, it will help open up more answers for them and even in a way make it easier for universities who are involved in these studies to gain funding. If they can show that there will be the chance of more of a credible result coming from any of this research,
yeah,
it
because
would
you
it
know
would pay off.
it would, but you know yourself, a medication has a formulary and a non-formulary mix. Now,
Yeah.
what's in that non-formulary mix in each one, as opposed to saying, you want 10 different generics? Fine, but the non-formulary mix has to match and the percentage has to match too.
No, and that's very true. And I hope that in time we will see improvements on that. But when it comes to research, many organizations are focused on finding a cure for epilepsy. While I want to see a cure, I would like to see the doctors focus on overall wellness for people with epilepsy. What are your views?
Oh, I totally agree. And one of the things that you brought up earlier, uh, different types of therapy, and one of them was meditating. And another one is breathing exercises. I was at Weill Cornell Epilepsy Center years ago, and the person went through a series of breathing exercises. It dragged on a bit. So they said, okay, let us know what you think. So I put my hand up. So I'll be honest. I says, we stood here, we did the breathing exercises. I says, well, they go, but it was a bit long. They go, what do you mean? I said, from the top of my head down to my waist, I don't have a care in the world. I was but waiting to do that. It dragged on. I said, I feel 5, 10 minutes is good enough.
Yeah.
Because if you put too much into it, then it's not helping either. Then you're going to be dependent upon so much every day. Where if you could just do 5 minutes a day as opposed to 35, it'd be a lot easier. I mean, yeah, if you need more, sure, that's you, get more. But don't expect everybody to be counting on 30 minutes of breathing exercise or 30 minutes of physical therapy as opposed to just 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
Oh,
Do it
absolutely.
in moderation.
Well, because we're all different. I notice myself, I'm more type A, assertive, competitive. So something like meditation, it helps. But
Sure.
I find I get myself more balanced doing something like lifting weights, where
Mm,
some people would say, "Oh, that's very stressful on your body. Why would you do that?" It makes me happy. So
yeah.
why wouldn't I? Now,
Mhm.
meditation's good, but yeah, if I had to sit there for 30 minutes and count my breathing, about 5 minutes in, I'd be like, can I be excused? I'm done. But that's my
I think you,
personality.
I think you do after 3 minutes, not five.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, so I can understand that method of it. I think what it really is, and I hate sounding negative, the chances of me seeing a cure for epilepsy, I feel, are very low in my lifetime, just because of the complexity. Like mine are from a traumatic brain injury. You were born with it. There's people who have it from genetic mutations, car accidents, brain tumors, so many things. And there's a lot of times when people develop epilepsy and they never figure out why.
Mhm.
So, not trying to sound negative, but with all the different ways epilepsy can come about, I don't know how we can pinpoint for a cure. Now, I hope what we do work towards is better healthcare, better acceptance of people with epilepsy, removing the stigma, helping people to be able to socially integrate better into society, those who have epilepsy. But that takes it, we have to be in the here and now for that. We can't be
Absolutely.
thinking 10, 15, 20, 50 years from now, oh, well once we get to the cure, then we'll, no, we got to start addressing the issues now. If we can help with emotional and mental wellness, if we can help build confidence for people to be able to step out of their homes and know they could do something productive with their life. I think that's the craziest thing I've been talking about is I'm in an entrepreneur group for disabled people,
Mhm.
and we meet every Wednesday and talk about what we're working on and gain support. And we met a gentleman today who created an organization in New York, and he's working to help families understand what the 504, IDEA Act, IEPs, what these all are, because he's been working within the schools and he found in New York City over 40,000 kids who have disabilities. The schools were not complying with FAPE to make sure, or following the IDEA Act, following any of these things to make sure that what these children needed to get the education they're entitled to. I know a lot of people don't like the words of entitlement, but FAPE does promise that.
Yeah.
And because they're not doing it, it's the kids who are suffering. And I've told people, when it comes to dealing with any disability, chronic, invisible illness, any of this, it starts in childhood, helping them through school to set goals, to build confidence for them to see. And I find too many times the school system is not doing that. The parents
Yeah.
either do not understand or are afraid to. And then where my level of empathy just goes up is I can't tell you how many people I've known go through school, graduate, and then they're not sick enough for disability, but it's
Right.
been assumed they're going to go on disability for this. And
Yeah.
then it's, well, where do I go to get a job? Or how do I even go on to school? Or, they're lost. They're going, how do I take care of myself? I don't know what to do.
Right. And that's something else too, that people who have a family member living with epilepsy, they should get put a will together in advance because how is that person going to function when you're gone? But,
Absolutely.
but you mentioned something about not believing there'd be a cure for epilepsy, and I totally agree. because the first known description of epilepsy goes back to 350 BC. That's over 2,300 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if they haven't found something yet, again, they'll definitely find things to correct it for many, but not all. But a cure, I
Yes.
really don't think so. It's going to be here.
Yeah. And I think just what I don't like about the word cure, and it's not to be negative. My sons have hemophilia type A, which is the common type of hemophilia.
Mhm.
Hemophilia B is a lot rarer, and you're at higher risk to have an inhibitor. I can't remember how many years ago it was. They created something to help cure hemophilia B. They were doing tests on it, and they had great results.
Yeah,
You want to know how much they wanted for the injections to end your pain from hemophilia B?
I'm afraid to ask.
$875,000.
Yeah, it's
When I saw that, I thought it was such an insult to the community. Even though my sons would not have benefited from it, my sons were not eligible, just to know that people who were dealing with it were aware this research was taking place and thought this could be something that could help me to have a life of normalcy and not have chronic joint pain or joint bleeds or being prevented from doing things in life, to have that treatment dangled in front of them and then them
true.
going, oh, well, it's going to be almost $1 million for you. Uh,
Yeah,
it's insulting. And I
it
think
is.
that's one of the reasons I almost don't want to see that so-called cure for our community, not because I don't want anyone to suffer from epilepsy, but myself after dealing with this for 40 years, if someone told me, "Oh, I have the cure for it. We know exactly what to do, but you got to point up seven figures for it and then we'll talk."
Yeah,
To me, that is just such an insult.
it
It's
is.
just such an insult. I would be so taken aback. I'd be like, no, thank you. I'd rather tough it out. I don't need you to be doing this to me.
Can we talk about the Embrace watch? The
Oh,
Embrace.
absolutely. Here, let me really quickly find it and then I'll share the screen again.
Yep. On the website under resources.
But no, I've noticed a lot of people have been reaching out for this. I've had in the support groups on Facebook, a lot of people are starting to talk about this, particularly for children and other individuals who have drug-resistant epilepsy or Dravet syndrome, who are at higher risk for SUDEP. For anyone who doesn't have epilepsy who is watching, SUDEP is sudden unexpected death due to epilepsy. And sadly, what happens is a lot of times with SUDEP, the person will have a seizure in their sleep, go into cardiac arrest, and sadly pass away. There's been too many sad stories in our community of parents finding their children dead the next morning from a
Right.
seizure and didn't have a resource like this to help let them know something was wrong.
True. Yeah, the we helped an individual get the Embrace 2 watch. And the way we set it up for the individual, you can have up to 3 contacts on your account. So he's been using it. And he says, this thing really works good. He says, I've had seizures and they've contacted my family. You put their names in and they love how it works. He goes, and I take it at night, take it off at night when I go to bed. I'm like, dude, what are you taking it off for? I said, if you,
That's when you want it on the most.
yeah. He goes, okay. And since then, he keeps it on 24/7. I
And
mean,
that's awesome.
I'm lucky. I don't need it, but believe me, if the surgery didn't correct my epilepsy, I definitely would wear it. But
Oh,
the
yeah.
medical bracelet for me is good enough.
Yeah. No, it is an important resource, and it makes me really happy to see that we have the level of technology developing that we do, and it's really making just such a difference. Well, you were just talking about your brain surgery. So in 2006, you had your brain surgery, and now your seizures are controlled from the surgery and taking medication. Can
Yeah.
you explain to our viewers what your recovery was like?
Oh, it was interesting to say the least. You come out of the hospital and you're in La La Land, And they explained to me, the nurse came straight out and said, don't be so macho. You're going to go home and the doctor's going to give you painkillers and other medications. Just take it. And I looked at her, she goes, just take it. And I did. And my poor wife had to watch me go up the stairs and literally put me in bed. And I would be out of bed just before 9 a.m. and be back in bed just before 9 p.m.
Oh, wow.
To stay on the first floor and not go anywhere and just be on the sofa or at the dining room table like that, it really, had an effect both on me and her. But she's great. It took about 3 months before I considered myself to be fully recovered. It took about a month before I could actually walk up and down the stairs myself.
Oh, wow.
The surgery was 10 and a half hours. We don't know if they put in 52 or 54 staples in, and really who cares?
Oh my gosh.
But considering what they cut over here, turned out pretty decent. It was a joke with the doctor. He kept pulling the staples out. He goes, I'm sorry. I said, just pull them out, please, because the longer you drag it on,
The more it hurts.
it's like watching a Western where the staple come out and he threw it into the stainless steel pan and you're hearing ping, ping.
Like you're at the bar having a drink and someone tossed something.
But after the third month, I was able to walk around. I made it a habit of going out twice a day. And that's what got me into walking so much that I ended up doing 10 laps. And my neighbor said to me, there goes Bobby again. He keeps walking around this. Where you going? And I said, just want to keep walking, just to feel better, to lose weight, everything. Now I walk in a completely different place, and instead of doing 10 laps, 2 laps is equivalent. So yeah, you can do it.
Oh, absolutely. So currently you are advocating to help get epilepsy medication into lower tiers to help make medication more affordable. Can you tell our supporters about the bill you want to see happen at a national level?
Well, we tried this bill for 5 years in a row, and luckily, uh, one of 3 of my state reps, they're all in my area, are looking into submitting the bill for the 2022 session on a state level.
Oh,
So
awesome.
when we faxed everything to Washington, D.C., I heard every lame excuse after another from, I don't address this. Like, well, you're on the committee that addressed prescriptions, healthcare. No, that we don't do that. Okay. Another U.S. senator said to me, I only serve my state. I said, no, you're a United States senator and you're on the following committees for the entire country. No, I don't do that. Okay. So this is what you have to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've been there with politicians. It's very frustrating when former President Trump went into power and the Republicans were talking about removing the Affordable Care Act protections, which many don't realize how important those are. That before those protections were in place, people with epilepsy could be denied health insurance, be denied coverage of medication. They could have been in situations where, if they would end up in the hospital, they could have ended up with a very big bill, which increased the chances of them having filed bankruptcy. I mean, I can't tell you how many. I wrote all 100 senators and I called offices. I actually had a couple wouldn't even answer
oh, yeah.
despite the fact that this was what they were advocating for. And I had another one that I didn't talk to him, I talked to a staff and flat out said to me, well, you're not in his jurisdiction. I said, this is someone who's saying, we want to fight for Medicare for all, that we're representing everyone. We're supposed to come together.
Yeah.
Well, you're
No,
not in his jurisdiction. He doesn't have to answer you.
right, which is totally wrong. And here in Connecticut, we have 2 U.S. senators, one in particular, Richard Blumenthal, nice guy and everything, but he goes out of his way to be on television 5 days a week. And he always says, I'm going to introduce a bill. And a lot of people are like, wow, that's great. And like, you didn't hear what he said. He's going to introduce a bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm going to put mail in the mailbox.
Yeah.
it gets delivered.
Doesn't
And
mean it's going to go through. It
mhm,
really takes a lot. I mean, I'm friends with the mother whose son has epilepsy, and they passed one of the seizure safety laws down in New Jersey.
yeah,
But I mean, having to first thing is first trying to find the representative who's even willing to work with you. Then, depending on what you want to do, does the teachers union support you? Do other situations are they support? I mean, there's so many bridges you
hurdles.
have to cross, so many burdens, so many people you got to get to see the importance of these things even before it meets the House or Senate floor. And I think people don't really realize how important it is and time consuming it is to network to put it together.
Well, one of the other things is the high cost of prescription medication, the brands. Now, we had a friend of ours, she knew about us for years, and her friend said, just go to Bob. And after 2 years, she finally came to us, and I wish she had come to us earlier. What happened was her insurance was charging her $1,100 a month for prescriptions.
Oh,
I said,
wow.
that can't be right. So I said, let me know who your insurance company is. I pulled it up, opened the PDF of the insurance policy on the website and read it. And this way I don't understand that you can have your company in Connecticut and your insurance carrier could be out of Connecticut. But why can't each state pick their own insurance carrier? And that way you can get the best coverage at the best price,
Yeah.
because there's going to be competition in every state. You don't go to Connecticut and say the only grocery store you can open up is a shop, right? You go into New York and say only grocery store you could have is a Stop and Shop. And so, no, they're across the country. They might be under a different name, but they're all owned by one company nationwide. So why not have a separate insurance set of insurance companies in each state and say,
Yeah.
I'd rather get my Blue Cross out of Georgia, or I'd rather get my Anthem out of Texas. Why do I have to get my Anthem out of Connecticut or my Blue Cross out of Connecticut when I know that Blue Cross in Georgia has a better plan, or my Anthem in Texas had a better plan?
Oh no, and it's a very valid point. I think what I would like to see happen if we couldn't have, the Medicare for All program, I think we should have a better national health care plan. But where I see right now where it's, a lot of people are very supportive of it, and the only reason I'm on the fence of it, not because I don't want it to happen, but in countries where it is happening, the reason it is affordable is they cap cost of how much you can charge per procedure, how
Mm,
much you can charge for medication, because with the way the healthcare system is the taxpayers are paying into it. So if you have a free market approach, you're going to bankrupt the program. It's not
yeah,
going to survive. It's going to fail big time. And I mean, my husband, he's originally from Germany, and they have very tight restrictions on how much of a profit the pharmaceutical companies can make per prescriptions when it comes to the medication. But one thing that I wish they had over here that they have over there is they're very strict on the doctors when it comes to patient care and not taking advantage of patients. One thing I've had frustrated in my life is I can't tell you how many unnecessary procedures or unnecessary tests I've been put through by doctors, knowing right at the end of the day it came down to the dollar.
right.
And they had a doctor over there doing that, doing unnecessary, patients thought they were complying, did unnecessary tests, really jacked up the bill, sending it to the social health care system. He got caught. Not only did he have to pay all that money back, they banned him for life from practicing medicine in Germany. He had his license pulled for the insurance fraud.
Yeah. See, over here, overall, the Affordable Care Act is pretty good. Get rid of it? No. Fine tune it? Absolutely. It
Yes.
needs to be fine tuned. What people don't understand is that a lot of the deductibles are high, co-pays are high. you getting on the plan as a married woman with children, him getting on the plan as a single guy, this one getting on the plane as a teenager, the prices, the breakdowns are completely different, and they
Oh,
have
yeah.
to balance them out. And the other part of insurance that many people don't know about is COBRA. So when you're out of work and you're in between either retirement, going to Social Security, or just finding another job to get a different insurance, look at the amount of what COBRA costs.
Yes.
There should be cap on what you can charge for a particular insurance, a cap what you charge for medication. And that way it makes it easy for people to survive. I mean, what are
Yeah.
we going to do with Medicare? Medicare has to be completely rewritten. Did you know that you turn 65 and you say, okay, I'm going on Medicare. So Part A is automatic, and you're like, well, I need Part D. Okay, excuse me, Part B, and that's taken out of your check. 10 years later, you're like, wait a minute, I need Part D for my prescriptions. Well, you didn't tell them that when you were 60. Now you're 70. You have to reimburse them for the 10 years that you didn't use Part D,
Oh
which,
my gosh.
which makes no sense whatsoever.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
You
And now,
can't just make the changes.
no, you just can't. And that's something that has to be addressed. But they don't want to look into it. Washington, D.C., both sides of the aisle do not want to look into it. So what does that tell you?
Oh,
They've
yeah.
got it good enough and they don't care. But it
Which
should
is
be
sad.
that, yeah.
But what would you like to see in the long term improve when it comes to our community?
The epilepsy community,
Yes.
I think more people living with epilepsy should understand you do have a neurological disorder. It's not safe to live with. You don't want it. But have an open mind when you address it. You go to your resources, go to solid resources. Just don't go to a chat room and like, oh, what do you think of this? No, find something like Defeating Epilepsy Foundation, find something like the LGS Foundation, things like that, which are solid. They've been around for over a decade. They know what they're doing. Their resources are both national, international. Find some solid, viable resource to go to. That's how you can get help. The other thing is when it comes to your medications, your doctors, we talk to people and we give them a series of questions about their doctor to give us the response. I go, then you have to paraphrase my cousin Vinny. They go, what do you mean? You say, I'm through with this doctor, as in you get another one. That's all. Tell the doctor be offended. Well, too bad. Let him be offended. The other thing they don't understand is that when they get their records transferred, they're going to charge us. I says, legally, they can charge you. But if you just turn around and say, no, I'm not going to pay, you don't have the right to charge me. 9 times out of 10, they just back off and they don't charge.
Yeah.
But you've got to open your mouth and tell them this. With all the patients we've taken, once we've said something, not a single one paid 1 red cent to have their records transferred. No one.
No, I had to challenge that once. I had a doctor who decided to choose her faith over what she should have been doing, and I felt she was being very unethical and was pushing me
Mhm.
out of my comfort zone. And when I left her, she tried to bill me. And when I called billing and I explained the situation and why I was leaving, they realized, she downright acted unprofessional. And it was
Absolutely.
a very private, situation, and it got waived for me. I've had a couple neurologists get angry with me because of I'm sorry if you hear my husband in the background. He's teaching tonight. But I've had doctors get angry because I have left the area or left them, I should say, and they take it personally. What
Yeah.
they don't realize at the end of the day is it's your body and you have to be comfortable working with someone,
Right.
and not everyone can like them. You might have some patients just can't click with you and they have to move on for their own well-being.
True. very true. Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
No, I think we covered quite a bit, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
But one of the biggest things is that if people look at the website, ct-ea.org, pretty much everything is covered there. And if you have any questions, go to the Contact Us page, and we'll gladly help you.
That's awesome. Well, that is all we have for today. Again, I want to thank Bob for coming and taking part. To see the great work we are doing, please like our social media pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We invite you to visit our website at www.defeatingepilepsy.org to see how we are making a difference for the epilepsy community. Thank you for your support, and together we will defeat epilepsy. Take care.